Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game.
And I'm Travis Holmes with BigCatCountry.com.
And you're listening to this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. Travis, I don't think, you know what? I looked through Twitter. And by the way, Duval Divers and Duval Devout alike, thank you for your patience. The reason why we waited till full on Sunday to give responses to the draft, it's entirely my fault. Okay. I'm going full Taylor Swift on this beast. I can't even talk now on this beast. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me, or more specifically, having the kids soccer game in the morning, the Magic beating the Pistons in game 3 of the playoffs. Holy snap. That was a whole thing. And by the way, courtside, I shook hands with the Orlando Storm head coach Anthony Beck before his game that night. Unfortunately, the Orlando Storm are no longer undefeated. You could check that out on the Storm Surge podcast. I was busy, okay? However, so too were the Jacksonville Jaguars. And now, Travis, if somebody were just coming in needing kind of a previously on episode of what had gone on in the draft in the first 2 rounds and then coming here to get our third round reaction, here's how I feel like Jags fans have responded to James Gladstone when it comes to the draft.
You are the dumbest effing MFer I've ever seen. You don't know S. How in the world can you even have a job? How can you even have a family? You're a moron. You're an idiot. You're a effing dumb effer. How could you even have that opinion? Go die.
Wow. I think
I'm pretty sure that's where they're at right now, Travis. Tell me I'm wrong, but
you're not wrong. That's the funniest part about this is I didn't even think about that clip in relation to this. But if you talk to anybody in this Duval Devout fan base over the past 24 hours, 48 hours.
I to pull it back behind the curtain like we do for you sometimes, divers. Like I said to Travis, ooh. There's a clip I could have played for the reaction to pick 56 with Nate Boerkircher, and I didn't do it. This was the opportunity because those reactions kept coming, right? It was pretty crazy. Now, up until they got the guard from Oregon, that's where I feel like the mood kind of lightened, and the rest of the draft reaction for the second day kind of evened off. But here we are. Yeah, and I'm with you, Big Diesel. The Pregnon pick was big. But let me get to some of these comments because y'all are fun. Social Alky standing on business still within stones I trust, but pull me off the ledge, Kyle and Travis. And I can assure you there were going to be some of the picks where I at least will try to do that. Maybe Travis will agree with me. Maybe he don't. Social Alky also points out UDFA class grades higher than our draft class. Yeah, no, he's kidding, but that's a funny sentiment. You have to say just kidding because some people out there might believe you. Shadow Blades in the comments. I trust Gladstone because Jalen Husky in college, they couldn't lock him down. That has me relieved a bit for our defense, but we have to see how these new guys respond to Campanelli's coaching. 100% accurate. I don't think there's an alternate direction on that take in particular. Absolutely. So yeah, with that in mind, I don't know if you had any other, well, you know what? Let's just get right into it.
Yeah, let's get into them.
The first of the day 3 picks was out of Duke, Wesley Williams. Of course, we have Daniel Griffiths, friend of the show, tweeting about him. Some of the tangibles in effect here, a 6'4", 256-pound linebacker. We knew more edge guys were going to go at some point for the Jags. You and I were pretty confident in that in each of our mocks at this point. Granted, you wanted Deontay Lawson, but that did not transpire for you. I apologize, Travis. But you also mentioned for Wesley Williams, 29 tackles for loss over the last 3 seasons, 46 pressures, 4 batted passes, and 24 run stops, 5 career special. Is that, I don't know what ST is. That special team? Does that
special teams blocks? Yeah, he has 5 kick blocks in his career.
Wow, that's actually formidable. So, there's some special teams play here. So that is something, and something we haven't talked about enough in this draft, in my opinion. You and I have brought it up a few times here on the dive, but something we don't talk about enough with these draft picks is special teams contribution.
Right. And that's a big thing. Like, and I've watched film on each of these guys at this point, so I can effectively say that now, having an actual night to do that. I'm very happy for the early picks on the day 3 of the draft. But Wesley Williams was an interesting selection because like he has a lot of the traits that you're looking for in like if you're talking about a late to mid round draft pick. Violent hands, a reasonably solid bag of moves, and like he has a cross chop that's pretty good, and an inside spin that he uses occasionally. But for the most part, he's primarily a high effort kind of guy. Like a little bit more on the power side than anything else. He doesn't really have a long arm that he kind of like lets loose, and as far as that piece is concerned, doesn't really have a good bend as far as a burst from the edge, just being honest about that. And a lot of his pass rush production in 2025 came from mainly just games and stunts like that. So like you're gonna have to scheme up the pressure in those ways. Over his last 2 years at Duke, like Dan Griffiths kind of lists all his accolades, like the 89 quarterback pressures and the 23 quarterback hits over this past 2 years. That's pretty dope. 89 pressures on 693 pass rush reps. Again, that's not bad, but most importantly, probably for this regime, because you know how they care about the offseason circuit like that, is he had a huge week at the Shrine Bowl. Like, and you already mentioned his special teams chops. So like that's what you're talking about. Another guy who can give you a little bit something, even if he's not going to be where you need him to be in year one. He's not a waste of a roster spot while he's still developing. Like he can still give you something on the special team side and trying to be a core 4 guy in that area. Bengals and Brews, we've mentioned those guys before because I think they watch a lot of tape. I give them credit on that. Like they mentioned a few of his negatives, like the fact that he had the 23.5 missed tackle rate last season. The shorter arm length, which we talked about, the long arm not necessarily being there. And more importantly, like he had the 15.5 win rate on true pass sets. The 15.5% win rate in true pass sets last year was just not bad, but it is that you're probably in the lower quarter of the pass rushers in this edge class. But if you think you can develop that, again, if you think you can scheme that, and we're talking about Anthony Campanelli, probably can scheme that. He's very good at scheming pressure last year. Then you think you're probably in a good situation if you get a guy like that and be able to kind of move maybe a Travon Walker inside and kind of work it from that perspective. So overall, I see at least what they may be going for, even if I might not necessarily been one of the guys with the name value that I might have preferred. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is another thing where I couldn't necessarily tell you the value, yes or no. You watch much more film than I, but I do from a needs perspective like that this is where they went for edge. Listen, they have paid, I should say, significant cash at the edge position at this point, right? They've locked down a few seasons back. Josh Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker just signed a huge extension. Dennis Gardeck has been secured. The money is spent there. So the fact that you're relying on this kind of a guy to get the job done from a depth perspective, excuse me, as well as having Strigo in the building, things like that, I kind of like that part of it to where this is the way you build it. Just a slight boost. And at Days End, Jimmy Stones and Liam Cohen want dudes fighting it out during camp leading up to the season. In the comments, Duval 33567, my first time speaking on this channel live. Glad to have you. I will say that I love the draft because if Cohen has demonstrated nothing else, he's shown to take players and maximize their skill sets within his system. Yeah, Travis said it during the season last year that self-scouting is a strength of this new administration. I think this is calling that out.
Yeah, self-scouting and development are the strengths of this organization. Because again, if you were to tell people just a year ago about multiple players on this roster, you would have been like, "Oh, that dude's a bust. Oh, that dude's not going to be anything. Or that dude is just he can't get it together, or whatever else." And then you look across the roster and you're looking at all these same guys who now everyone's giving Trent Baalke credit for. Now you're saying, "Oh no, this dude's great. That dude was incredible. This dude's good. Oh, we let Travis Etienne go. Oh my gosh, we let Devin Lloyd go." All these kinds of conversations, forgetting that a big part of that is the fact that they hired the right coach, which Trent Baalke could not do. And that coach got the development out of these players, which the previous coaches couldn't do.
And thank you for saying that, because I want to say it out here and remove all ambiguity. Not that you were ambiguous, but I'm going to use a lot more powerful language. All you fools still slurping Baalke, you do realize it's Liam Cohen that's all about the life here, making those players develop, right? You realize that. You realize it's Liam Cohen that's making that lift. Okay, maybe Bulky got him in the building, but without this staff, they aren't developing.
And you're not getting this staff with Trent Baalke. We kind of effectively know that because that's literally what happened.
Because history, that's why. Because real damn life. Okay.
So overall, like, I have my opinions of this draft class, and I'm gonna save that to the end, because I got some opinions, and they're on both sides of that. But Big Diesel, shout out, says, I can't speak too much on these guys because I haven't really watched any of them other than Pregnons. I do understand the explanations Gladstone and Cohen gave, so I'm happy if they know how to use them, and that's the biggest part. That if they know how to use them, if they have a vision, if they understand how they want to use these guys, then dope, it is going to work out. Because these guys, at that point, you have to presume that they're going to be better NFL players than they were college players because of how they're now being used in this professional league, and they ain't got to go to school and pretend to go to school for football, which is what college is these days. Let's be real.
And I love in the comments that I'm seeing some of the divers greet each other as they jump in. This is a community. I'm getting all warm and fuzzy here on this Sunday. That's what's up.
Speaking of, man, hey, like and subscribe. Click that button so you get notified of these pods when they happen. But most importantly, think about becoming a member. Become a part of the Duval Devout. Get into that community. Like, y'all already family, but now you can be cousins. That's what it is.
No, it's exactly right. The barbecue is going to be a fun place when it happens one day, right? It's all a thing. Timmy Devil, ironically mentioning Timmy Devil on a Sunday.
Way down.
I've calmed all the way down. I'm supporting this coaching staff to develop these guys and put them in the right direction. Wonky draft. Or direction, rather. Wonky draft, but let's see how it goes. And see, now that we're a couple days removed from Friday, I'm starting to see that calm down. Listen, I come out here with Frank Vogel and the rant vid because it's so funny. But that's Friday, and the more and more people talk about it and other analysts jump in and they talk about it. Listen, props to other people out there keeping people off the ledge. The Brett Colemans, the Anthony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars, Jordan DeLugo of a Generation Jaguar has had some smart takes as well. And at the day's end, as you start to analyze things and they point out all the needs are met, more and more Jags fans are giving me this vibe.
How good is that?
So
let's not go too crazy.
Well, no,
I don't think they're there yet.
Before you flash the exaggeration alert, let me tell you what I mean by that. Say what you will about the players and perhaps some of their draft value. Unanimously, when it comes to the draft value of a lot of these picks, there are concerns, there are questions. Maybe when it comes to those, the question's been posed. What are we doing here? I get it. The Liam Cohen meme makes sense. But beyond the value, what they are doing, and that's very easily describable, is they're fulfilling all the needs that a lot of you out there among the Duval Devout have also pointed out. I guess we're going here. I'm going full hot take. You like this draft. You just don't like the name slapped on it.
I mean, sure. But I was trying to save it to later, but you will make me have my conversation about right now, because we haven't talked about the consensus board. We haven't talked about the reaches. There's so much context that I feel like we need to talk about before we get to our real opinions of what this class is. Because again, most of the fans that have these opinions, unfortunately, as your commenter just stated, haven't watched the film. We stayed up till 11:30 last night watching film. That's all I was doing last night. So at least we're going to have a real conversation about what it looks like before we have the conversation talking about value, because value is in the eye of the beholder, but value is also in the eye of the person creating these mock boards and the different NFL professionals, and that there is some value in that. But hey, man, let's talk about Tanner Koziol, Houston tight end, please. Yeah, and so as I put on the socials, the Jaguars drafted him in round 5. And he's another guy with a massive catch radius. I mean, 6'7". Yeah, 6'7". Yeah, I know. You got kids. You hate it. Yes. Yeah, nearly an 81-inch wingspan, 37-inch vertical, and more importantly, a 74% contested catch rate, which nearly matches Nate Brokersher's 75% contested catch rate. So, in case you had any questions about what this is, They want to resolve any issues in the red zone. They want to give Trevor Lawrence what he's never had, that Tim Patrick role. Like, and I say Tim Patrick role because Tim Patrick didn't get the number of targets you would have expected for someone of that size with that wingspan. They're already 8th in the NFL in 2025 in the red zone and conversion rate. I think they just want to make that be number 1 in the league so they don't leave points on the field. That's where I'm looking at there. Go ahead.
See,
Go ahead. Get your opinion out.
And I'm sighing for 2 reasons. One, what I'm going to say, I know you're going to have your finger on the pause button because it's going to sound away, and I'm not meaning for it to. Okay. But you got Boerkircher, you got Brenton Strange, and Quentin
Morris.
Morris, thank you. Already. How deep is the tight end supposed to be at this point?
You're right.
This is insane.
You were correct. You were correct.
There's
no way to get around it.
This is why I prepped everybody for it, okay? But the punchline is you didn't need another one, man.
But you're talking about need. Who cares about need? Like, that's when I say need another one, you're talking about being content in Quentin Morris, who you re-signed for a 1-year contract with like less than $2 million guaranteed, which doesn't guarantee you a roster spot, just an opportunity to compete. You're talking about a Hunter Long who's on the roster, who we were split on whether or not it was going to be Hunter Long or Johnny Munt, who was going to be the tight end that got cut from this roster, but we knew one of them was likely going to be gone at the end of it. It just happened to be the other one. Now Hunter Long is more likely than not competing for a roster spot because of all these new tight ends that have been brought in.
Which, by the way,
do all
competition. My point, Social Alky, you got 4 dudes, and then you just added a 5th. That's all cool. There's no world where you can convince me that he was the best player on the board. I find that difficult to believe. But then again,
so now we're talking about best players. Now I understand your argument. And my response to that is then just saying the Jaguars know that they want to play more 2 tight end and 3 tight end sets. So we're not just talking about
Yeah.
They were 22nd in the league in percentage of snaps played and 13 personnel last year. It was less than 3%. But whereas the new trend in the NFL is going to 13 personnel because the defenses are getting lighter, and more importantly, they're running a lot more two safety sets. So across the board, when
Stones is calling. He said so much during his presser. That's what it was. He's letting us know. He said that during the presser. Go ahead. Yes.
So we've been saying on this podcast, and if you want to go back to the week after the Rams game, you want to go back to the week after the Seahawks game, we talked about it both times where the Jaguars got mollywopped with those 3 tight end sets. And we said at that point, then it's on the record that they would be investing heavily in tight end this following season. Why? Because it's a copycat league. And as soon as you see the Rams spamming folks for multiple weeks straight in the second half of the season, they led the league in doing it.
Travis. Oh my God.
It's not just the Rams, because the Seahawks did the same thing. Your Super Bowl champion Seahawks also did it. And folks weren't talking about it because once everybody started catching on after they played those teams, they're like, oh crap, we're gonna have to do something, because they found something to counter teams playing a lot of nickel, teams playing a lot of cover 2 or 2 high safety looks, or teams having just those lighter linebackers. And how do you change your whole defense based on the fact that I built it light? You get bigger on the offensive side and you try to debo them dudes. That's what it comes down to offensively. So they added these 2 tight ends, a 2nd rounder and a 5th rounder, and it's going to result in a lot more competition for Hunter Long and Quentin Morris to make this roster. I ain't got no problems with that. But you said something about need, and I'm like, what's need got to do with it? Like,
first of all, great drop. I really loved that. I really did. Second, we've said on this show, it's that balance of BPA versus need, right? And you've addressed the dude already that you reach for significantly. We'll talk more about reach later, like you said. And you have 4 in the room. What's need got to do with it is great. What I'm saying is perhaps you've committed 2 sins simultaneously. You've addressed the position at length. And again, I'm doubtful that it's the BPA as well. Now, the best point you made too is the alteration of the direction that the league and offenses in general are trying to go. God forbid somebody trying to exercise the bulky demon is attempting to modernize. Totally get that argument. I love it. It might be the best argument you could provide against me. But if I ask you point blank, this was BPA at this spot? I've heard no one say yes to this point.
Oh no, see, it's not about BPA. At that point, it's about obviously you got the coaches Anthony Campanelli, you got the coaches Liam Cohen in the ear of your general manager. You know they're drafting in lockstep. It's not just James Gladstone, even though he's going to get the vast majority of the vitriol from the fan base. Obviously, they're getting the guys who they believe that they want. And you have an offensive-minded head coach who calls the plays, who you have to then presume, hey, no, this is this dude saying, even if, and I'm not saying if it's going to happen, but even if this team doesn't have the defense that you want them to have, we believe that our best route to success is going to be outscoring teams or being innovative enough to teams can't figure out what we're going to do. And it's going to be on the offensive side of things. So I'm here saying there's a tiebreaker here. Go offense. I need to give me another tight end who gives me something that the other guys don't got. And now we have multiple options where we have I don't even want to ruin the take a half for later. So I'm going to stop myself from talking right now and just say you have multiple contested catch opportunities on this offense between the different tight ends they brought in and the different wide receivers that they brought in. And we're going to get into them in a second.
So that means for a moment there, you just had to pause, which now means something completely different, apparently. But anyways, next pick down the line, Josh Cameron, the wide receiver. Ryan O'Halloran on Twitter really liked the player. NFL assistant coach on Jaguars wide receiver Josh Cameron really liked the player. Really good kid, smart, big hands, tough to tackle with the ball in his hands, not a blazer, adjusts to the ball in the air, and powerful route runner. Travis, I'm going to make a statement to see if this is what you think that's trying to be compelled here. Okay. This is Tim Patrick with a better contested catch opportunity.
That's what people keep saying, and I think they're damn wrong. And no, it's not just you. I've seen so many people in the media say it, and I think they're damn wrong. And I say it because I don't see this as Tim Patrick, even though it's another contested catch kind of guy. Like, he's different, but instead of me saying what I think he is, I think he and all of the other wide receivers have a very similar trait overall. Like, he's the one that's different because he's 6'1", 225. That's a thick boy. That's a running back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's a
literally Eddie George numbers, right? Your Jags fans used to hate that dude with a passion because he'd run people over. Those are Eddie George numbers. As far as
but he also don't drop balls. Like, he's one of those guys. Like, he plays like a running back.
Sorry.
Right. So 6'1", 225, you're a thicker wide receiver, but with the frame of a running back, you don't drop balls.
And Eddie George
have a 59.3% contested catch rate on 27 targets last year. Like, he's not just so that's why people will say he's the Tim Patrick role, and I get it because he's good on contested catches. You know who else is like 6'1" and great at contested catches? Parker Washington. That's what, if anything, that is like, you look at his film, you watch his film, and you'll consistently see a guy who's dragging dudes or like who's trying to make tackles in the open field. He's breaking their tackle attempts on backside digs. Like, he's also was one of the better wide receivers at the Senior Bowl practices, and he gives you another punt returner. Again, everything I just said to you sounds like Parker Washington. You could even make the argument that sounds like Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp, if that's what you want to go with, but he's just a bigger, thicker dude. I mean, Social Alka says Debo with hands, but I don't see him as often, like, on the 3 games that I watch, running the ball. So I don't want to say Debo necessarily, but in the way of backside digs, dragging guys, thicker frame, all of that. Yeah, I think that's actually very similar to Debo Samuel, but you can make the exact same argument that then is Puka Nacua. And that's the way that his game, because he's really good at, his routes and also good at breaking those tackles. But I think it just gives them another avenue of, it helps them a little bit in the Parker Washington negotiations. That don't hurt. We're still waiting on that. But I think the same thing about a lot of their receivers. That sounds a lot like that mold of mid-round guy, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, plug and play. Awesome. Yeah, Timmy Devil. Go ahead.
I think this element's important too. From a friend of me of the show, Timmy Devil. His route running is nice, sweet release package. First of all, if you're that big and you can run a crisp route, you're just that much more dangerous. Because if you run a correct, and please, corner, testify this on my behalf if I get it wrong, but if you're a larger receiver and you're running crisp routes, that's just an extra advantage you have, period, point blank. Because corners can only go so many places to stop a proper route tree.
More importantly, corners have but so much leverage. Like even if you're taller, like, and you're trying to jam a receiver, and if you're 225 and you actually got power behind that, it's a problem. It's generally a problem. That's why corners don't like going up against tight ends. Like even if they're like a taller corner and they have like the actual height and the wingspan and the leverage on the tight end, it's just more difficult. These guys might more weight behind that motion. It's a different type of conversation. So when you do have a good release package like that, and you have the weight behind it, and you run good routes, and you break like all these things, I'm not trying to make the guy be this incredible all-pro wide receiver who we haven't seen play in the NFL, but I'm saying the traits are there. If you want to have another guy who's a plug and play in this system that we know the Jacksonville Jaguars are running, that is very similar to that LA Rams system, that I can see the vision there, if that makes sense.
So with that in mind, I mean, the next pick off the board as well was Stanford CJ Williams. Again, it's similar size piece. Actually, this one, he's literally Deebo Samuel minus 1 pound. If you look at the tails of the tape out here too, at 6'1" and 199 and a 4.5340. I might add here. I see why you put this graphic.
Right. Right. But they had such a good day 3 that it was so wild that the rest of it was so off of the consensus board. That's what caused the real conversation of the vitriol, we'll even call it, from the fan base, is the consensus board conversation. Because when you look at what they did on day 3, I won't BS people. As much as I told y'all on last night's Duval dive, the night before last, my bad, I forgot what day it is. Friday's Duval dive. Yeah. I equally thought that they had a great day on day 3. It just sucks that we'll see what the actual outcome comes out of the first few days. But this guy, CJ Williams out of Stanford, another Shrine Bowl standout, which that this coaching staff it's a big thing for them. They love guys who do well at the Senior Bowl or guys who do well at the Shrine Bowl practice week. If they got them leadership traits and they may be a little bit older, oh Jesus, it's like they can't wait to draft them. So that's, I love
that you said practice instead of the game. That's something I need to continue to hit home for all you cats out there that aren't on the media circuit or inside of what goes on at these All-Star games. The All-Star games themselves aren't all that. The main thing you get from the game is a player's ability to learn something new on the fly. That's all you get out of the game, okay? Right. The practices are the big thing. This is why I don't regularly cover All-Star games, right? I covered the Hula Bowl when it was here in town. Why? Because I could go to 3 of the 5 practices and actually see these humpy bumpy thump. Blah. Try that tongue twister. Anyways, so all of the above to say, watching that practice against other high-level dudes is prime tape. I see where they're coming from.
I mean, yeah. So that's really what it comes down to. Like, and I think he made some real money. Well, obviously, he got drafted based on that performance, but in the practice throughout that week. But so overall, we're looking at a situation where Williams, he spent time at USC, so big program, Wisconsin, big program, and then finally Stanford, where he had his quote unquote breakout season. Like, I know it wasn't this incredible 1,000-yard whatever, but 750 yards, 6 touchdowns. The big Shrine Bowl week after you show up there when you're level setting with all the other top competition, that does a lot. That does him a lot of favors. Again, you're still talking a 6th-round guy, so there are still questions as far as the game was concerned and as far as the athleticism was concerned. So I understand why it happened, but he's a tough, physical inside and outside receiver. He also plays special teams. Most teams are going to like that kind of guy on their roster, but he, again, this is the fun part about it. When I say a lot of the guys they brought in are very similar, just like Cameron. Josh Cameron, he's a polished route runner. He has strong hands at the catch point. And this is just the stuff I already had in my pre-draft, on him. Great at 50-50 balls. And he gets in people's face. He puts his chin strap in dude's chest. And when it's time to block, when I said earlier, am I weird to say all of these guys sound very much like Parker Washington, which you can then equally argue sound like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp? That's the style of guy they want to have. And again, the Rams built their offense to have 2 of those guys, and now the Jaguars are just trying to load up on all of them like they're Pokemon cards. Just like I need all the Parker Washington type looks. Yeah, I just need to catch them all. And if we have any injuries, I can plug and play any of these guys to have depth. I think that's the logic. I think that's the identity that they're looking for in doing that.
See, when you talk about Pokemon and like with Parker Washington, got to catch them all. Like, Parker, use your out there somewhere attack.
Wow. Use the out there somewhere attack. Okay, yeah.
Hey, bro, come on. That's what that contested catch with the Broncos was, is the out there somewhere attack. You know I'm right.
I mean, yeah, is that contested catch is something serious. And if you haven't seen that trend now, every pass catcher that they're looking for is someone who is great at contested catches, and 3 out of the 4 of them are guys who don't drop balls. Like, and I say 3 out of the 4 because Nate Broekesher was the only one who had quote unquote drop issues. But you're talking on such a small sample size. I don't know if that's sample size bias or not. Whatever, they still brought him in. So, and he's great at contested catches. Yeah. So I don't know. We're still good overall though. Like
if contested catches is something that is caused by recency bias, that's fine, because the key word being catches, Travis. You know something else recently that hasn't happened a lot? Catching the damn ball. How about that? So I'm with that. That's one recency bias I'll allow, man. Wow, yeah.
Hey,
so,
a lot of comments. I know we've got to get them guys some time to get.
Not even that. Like, there's a couple I want to get back to that I'm marking down here too. But what I do want to jump in real quick. Safety room, according to Jasso, whatever, 700. Safety room looks like a bunch of dogs except for Murray the vet. But the future looks set with young talent. I don't think it's fair to call Murray not a dog. I just feel like he's at the part of career where the dude's suffered some injuries. He might be down a step or two.
I mean, sure. I mean, but I also think, yeah, he may not be the young pup or the that's biting at guys' ankle trying to get the role, but also he's the guy who's going to get you lined up right, make sure you don't make the mistakes, make sure you're communicating right. All across the board, I still think that's fine. That's a fine spot to be in also.
If you set the bar at Eric Murray and the pups are hopping over it, that's a fantastic thing.
Right. And exactly. If Eric Murray's your floor, then you're in a good situation. And I think that's the reason he was brought in the first place.
There you go. Next guy off the list. I know this is Travis's favorite pick. I'm joking. Parker Hughes.
Yeah, Parker Hughes.
Linebacker out of Middle Tennessee State.
Well, so he was one of the 7th rounders. That's basically there's no other better way of saying it. It's like your preferred undrafted free agents. Like whether you believe the consensus boards or whatever else, like he was rated a little bit lower, but no one's going to clown you about what draft picks you made in the 7th round. We know that you just getting your guys. Obviously, the team wanted him because his athleticism. Again, you're talking to a guy who ran a freaking 4.39 in the 40, who's a big linebacker, a big nickel, basically, like 228 pounds. So like it's on the smaller side for a linebacker, but on the bigger side for a nickel, basically, like we just talked about with goodness gracious, the wide receiver we were just talking about. CJ Williams. Not CJ Williams. It was Josh Cameron, 225. Like basically the same size of that. So like a big nickel, small linebacker. But he had 100 tackles, 2 INTs, 2 pass breakups, 3 tackles for a loss, and 2 quarterback hurries in 12 games at Middle Tennessee State. I watched his Sam Houston and Western Kentucky games because I wasn't going to watch all games on a guy who was originally rated as an undrafted free agent. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I got so much time on my day. But I still watched 2 games because those were the 2 games where he had interceptions and he had 11 tackles and 7 tackles in each. He seemed solid. He seemed like good. I don't know what to take from that just because you're still talking level of competition jump. But last year, 795 snaps on defense and a Pro Football Focus grade of 80.8. I just thought that might have just been a shot in the dark by Gladstone to try to get his guy before you get into those public negotiations on the open market.
Competition flash here in the comments, exactly.
So maybe he thinks Hughes can be like his version of the Christian Roseboom, the Rams undrafted free agent we talked about with JP Acosta. He was an undrafted free agent from South Dakota State, and he later ended up being their starting linebacker back in 2024. Like he had 135 tackles. So like that's folks don't know. Like, well, some folks don't know. If you're a new listener, I used to play football for UCF. I was a walk-on who later earned my scholarship. Like, I'm always going to root for the undrafted free agent guys or those late round draft picks because, I'm also equally aware that most of those guys, maybe 1 out of every 20, 1 out of every 40 of those guys are historically going to do something worth talking about. The math don't generally work like it works against them. So we gonna see. Jacksonville had BJ Green and Danny Strigo in 2025. They had James Robinson back in, I think that was a 2020 season. They even had Allen Robinson back in 2014.
James
so like,
Robinson, who's now a Louisville King, by the way.
No, but that injuries messed him up.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but we'll see.
I'm not trash him. He's still playing, is what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, dude. No trash talk.
We'll just see if the team can keep this thing going with those late round or undrafted guys. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you had any thoughts on them because again, I know you're still talking a 7th round.
Yeah, I'm relying on you for that one. That I think there's some good takes there. Timmy Devil mentions with his speed that you pointed out, his 20-yard split, sideline to sideline speed, special teams contribution.
A good place. Yeah, that's fair. No, that's fair. I didn't think about his 20-yard split, but yeah, you're not wrong. So that would mean he would also be probably good in the box in that way.
And so Alki, I know you were out there in the comments asking about UDFAs. Well, this is the part where I say, bam, there's the guy. That Travis.
We can't get it. Well, we can't get into the UDFAs until we get to the last draft pick. We skipped one, didn't we?
No, that's what you have here. Unless there's something that's out of position here.
Zach Durfee. Yeah. The defensive end from Washington.
You don't have a visual for him, but we haven't talked about him. So yeah, go ahead. But Durfee.
Oh yeah, you're right. I was like, I knew we skipped somebody. But yeah, Durfee. I mean, from my pre-draft notes, like he's a physical, rugged edge. He runs through contact on pulls. Nice spin move and a nice counter. Like you don't see the spin move as often, but nice counter to match his long arms. They said he didn't play football in 2020. And if anybody looks at the ESPN Project X series, it's widely thought of that he's this year's the 2026 Project X, which is the guy who generally falls through the cracks for NFL teams and could probably be a really good late round gem in the NFL. Just a guy who just hasn't had it go right, maybe for injuries or for different reasons like that. But overall, I mean, that's what I got is like he's just one of those guys who, for whatever reason, just didn't fall into the radar of the NFL until later. But he has the traits, and when you see him like practicing and you see what everybody's saying about him, it's like, oh, maybe he might be that dude. So the Jaguars could have maybe done something well with him as a 7th round prospect. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, now we can get to those comments, and now we can get to.
Okay, here we go. So yeah, we were answering the question about the UDFAs, Devin Marshall in the building. You got an NC State guy who was just different than the one that you picked in all the mocks. But so another Shrine Bowl guy, NFL draft CB. I don't know what that means. NFL draft CBs?
Cornerbacks.
Oh, he's a corner. My dumb butt. Red edge. I'm so sorry. Anyways, Shrine Bowl standout, 4th in catch rate allowed in draft CBs. There we go. And first in forced incompletions, which is a significant number. I'll grant 23 passes defended, 4 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles last season. So those are decent numbers, but you know already how I feel about ACC guys. They play inferior competition, and they get credit for full competition, which they shouldn't. They're the worst power conference. And yeah, I'm sorry if you love NC State Cardex, but I don't. I don't love the conference. NC State is just fine, but yeah.
Right, it's the conference. Well, no, but I'm not getting into the whole underdrafted free agent class. Like, that's not the time for this right now because we still got a whole conversation to have about the overall draft class of what it was versus what it ain't.
Memory back. We just might for this,
No, but for of this undrafted free agent class, the most notable names is Marshall, like cornerback NC State, and we just talked about him, and Jamari Taylor, the running back from Virginia. They also added 3 undrafted free agent wide receivers in addition to the 2 we already talked about they drafted. And I told you, like, it just feels like they're just like, no, we're going to have depth. And we're not just going to have depth. We're going to have depth that we can feel like can do the same roles as these guys that we have on our roster.
We're also
in case there's injuries.
Besides Parker to return some damn kicks.
I mean, that also could probably help. But Jamari Taylor, I mean, it really felt like the testing was his primary reason he didn't get drafted, because if you turn on his tape, His tape is draft worthy. Like, and I'm not saying he got to be a 4th round guy, but if someone told me Jamar Taylor was drafted in the 5th round, I'd be like, that makes sense. Like, he great contact balance, good, like when contacting the defender, generally falling forward, keeps his feet moving whenever he's running through the hole. Like, overall, he's good at both inside and outside zone. He presses the hole well, good one cut option overall. Like, I thought he was a solid running back. It was just one of those classes where a lot of the late round and mid to late round running backs felt the same, and they started coming off the board also late, which just hurt him in this year's draft class, but it's good for the Jaguars at least. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good situation. Oh, also, I didn't even talk about the fact with Marshall, he had 4 INTs over the last 2 seasons. I just saw my notes on him, and an 88.3 coverage grade with an 84.7 run defense grade per PFF, only allowing 43% completion rate last year. That's me emptying the notes on the guys that I have, at least right now, because again, these are undrafted free agent guys. I just haven't watched much of their tape, but at least I have my notes for the pre-draft process on them. Any comments you want to showcase before we get into this reaches?
Yeah, that's the thing.
This is board combo.
Robert Salazar's in the comments. Well, it was just a question. Are you guys overall happy? But since you're we're going to answer it at the end, dude. What are we talking about? We can't just give you the damn farm.
Yeah, you can't skip the actual prospects and then talk. And before you can't talk about how you feel about the draft class and then tell you about the prospects. Nah, bro. That's if you want your whole dinner, you got to have the vegetables. Nah, you got to have your vegetables first.
Well, first of all, I think we provide some rather meaty stuff here. There's some steak here. There's some fine quality, meat that we're throwing out here. He just wants dessert first. And just listen, young man.
Yeah. So if you want to get into the reach conversation and about our feelings of the draft class, I wrote about it on Big Cat Country. So we have the whole consensus board conversation discussing the fact that the Jaguars objectively went outside of what the industry consensus board was this past season more than any other team in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers has led the NFL in going away from the quote unquote getting bad value in their drafts since 2020. And it's very clear. I mean, it's even become a public conversation with with John Lynch and Shanahan this past weekend when they were asked about it specifically in their post-draft conversations. The Jaguars were, what is it, like 10% more on their reaches this past season. So this past draft. So it is a topic of conversation. It's not to say you don't love the guys or hate the guys that they actually end up drafting, but it is to say it feels like based on where the consensus 200, let's say, analysts and scouts in the industry say the guy's going to be drafted, your team said, no, we don't care about none of that. We're getting these guys here. And the fans kind of reacted to that. Like, I have a few comments from the Big Cat Country, my Big Cat Country article that, it says, someone, Jimmy PX says, hey, is it me? Or are you guys getting Gene Smith or Dave Caldwell? I'm the smartest guy in the room vibes, which MKN man says Glass Zone is far more Gene Smith with his must be 5th year senior to be drafted 95 picks above consensus vibes. And I'm like, I wanted to showcase those 2 comments because I honestly do feel like that is a big talking point throughout both the national media and also the fan base from all of my conversations in all of the places with these guys.
So to summarize it better, is the statement here that Gladstone favors older players, more mature players?
That's absolutely true. But that's a Rams thing. That's a Vikings thing. A lot of the teams, they want the older players because that means you can get value out of those guys quicker and a little bit less growing curve as far as development is concerned. So if you get a guy who's 23, 24, they're probably going to be a team captain. They're probably going to be a leader on the defense, on the offense. And they're probably going to then also, if you don't re-sign them, because they're 29 and 30 years old after their rookie contract, then you get comp picks out of that also. So it just says they're more useful in their rookie contract generally if you're a little bit older. That's a fair statement.
Yeah. Okay. No, and I know that had been asked, and we had conversations about it in the past. I know one of the knocks on RJ Harvey, for example, last year was that he was older. I'm like, fool, yeah. That's a feature, not a bug. And by the way, to your point, the likelihood of having to pay a huge second contract for them reduced because they're older. That's a great point you make from a franchise perspective.
So if I give you my general opinion of the offseason, which I mean, yeah, the Jags, they didn't draft a single cornerback. They didn't add a single cornerback like in free agency. So across free agency and the draft, no cornerbacks, no offensive tackle. I mean, I guess no backup quarterback even. I mean, so you're that's Nick Mullins. You added 2 tight ends. You added 2 receivers in the draft. You added 2 defensive ends. You lost Devin Lloyd and Travis Etienne. You lost Greg Newsome and Dewey. To some people, they think that's positive. Maybe it is. They added Chris Rodriguez and a lot of 5th year, 6th year seniors, like team captains, a lot of general glue guys. And probably the best pickup of the group was the one that they seemingly weren't. That's what I'm talking about. The one that they want, who was probably the best pickup in this draft class was Emmanuel Pregnon. Yep. And it was very obvious that they were not targeting him. Right. I mean, obviously, he was originally talked about to be maybe a late first round guy who may be able to sneak in, or maybe at worst case scenario, a late second round guy. They got him at pick 88. That means that, and they already publicly said that they weren't expecting him to be there. Like, it was one of those kind of situations. So then I'm like, I was already told when I texted somebody and asked them that there were no medical issues with Pregnon. That was my original assumption, was something was going on there, because why did he drop? But there were no medical issues. That's the only thing I do know for sure. So, but apparently multiple teams dropped him down their draft boards because of something, whatever the something is. Like, again, that could be.
Can I harbor a guess?
I mean, that could be off the field stuff. That could be, playbook stuff. That could be a billion things.
I think it is and only the 2 letters in front of his name denoting his position.
Interior line.
I think it's entirely the fact that he's a guard. I think every time when posed the decision that, well, we could pick this guard here who's pretty good, but we have this other dude that is higher on our board at a position of greater need, or a flashier position, or is more of a playmaker, or a guy who could, fill in your particular favorite platitude all you want. But when it was time to be bold and not let those letters hold him back, Gladstone pulled the trigger. Now, I say bold, but how the hell bold is it to get a guy that's, 40 spots lower than his predicted spot? And again, damn, the consensus has generally been the feeling in general for the draft, not just by the Jags. So, yeah.
I mean, you're not necessarily wrong, but it's also weird because you still have Keelan Rutledge, Jamal St. Cyr's guy, and I would also argue my guy, but he wasn't my top guy. He goes in the first round, in the late first round. We were thinking that he might have been a second round, guy at maybe 56, or a trade up candidate early second round. He goes in the first round to the Texans. Chase Benosis, Bissonone, I don't know how to say the man's last name, from Texas A&M. He ends up going in the second pick in the second round, and then nobody takes a chance on Pregnon until the third round. That felt weird to me. So I don't know if it's necessarily a position thing. But nevertheless, I just thought it was weird because it was like they felt very clear that they weren't targeting him, and it wasn't a medical thing. And my first thought was honestly, the team was content at interior O-line, and they were content at offensive tackle depth. And so that means they must feel good about Cole Van Lanen's injury situation and or return, from the rumored offseason, surgery and whatever else happened at the end of the season. And that would also then at least indicate from their feelings that they feel good about Wyatt Milam's 2026 ascension. So they feel good about Patrick Mekari and actually being injury free this season. I don't know. So with Pregnon and Mekari and Wyatt Milam, that combination at all the guard spots and all the backup guard spot behind Hezra Cleveland, they obviously feel great about it, because it would be really wild to be having a conversation right now about this draft class if Pregnon was not part of it. Think about it. If he doesn't drop and he gets selected by some other team beforehand, your best pick of objectively in this draft class is not part of that. And then you're like, wait a minute, then what was the plan here? I think that's a fair question, or a fair assessment of this draft class, because again, that wasn't the target.
I'll say this: the reason why we would evaluate the draft low, generally speaking, is as much as we've pointed it out that going need based in the draft is not always the best move. I don't think it's avoidable to consider that Stones went that way. This is a need-based draft. And by the way, here's another interesting concept that I want to throw out. And Big Diesel asked the question. I don't know why people dump on guard until they can't run the ball or give up interior pass rush. Then all of a sudden they're valuable. I'm all about the entire O-line and D-line regardless. And I think this was best explained to me. I was at the Super Bowl in LA when the Rams battled the Bengals. Now, why is that significant? Perhaps everybody remembers Joey Burr having no O-line, getting knocked out his rookie year, and then returning the next year to the Super Bowl on the strength of getting his guy at receiver, right? Mm-hmm. At day's end, I had this conversation. I said to James Jones, former Packer receiver, then NFL Network analyst, says to him, I'm a lineman, you're a receiver. We each have our biases, but help me understand why snatching up an elite playmaker receiver is more important than getting anybody to protect your guy who was knocked out the previous year. And this is granted, I don't always agree with this, but this is what he said. He said, if I get one receiver, one playmaker, I can completely change the offense. If I get one offensive lineman, tackle guard or otherwise, that change cannot be as dynamic. And there's some truth to that.
Right.
So
but that's the same argument towards running backs who can make guys miss, because one running back can make a lot of guys miss, but one offensive guard doesn't necessarily change the whole makeup of your offensive line.
Right. And those arguments rhyme together, but to land the play for Diesel, that's generally why air quotes guard is dumped upon until you need it. That kind of thing. Yeah. So
I mean, you got to prioritize, but this Jacksonville Jaguars team has already told you they got to get bigger. They got to get better at running the ball. Like, they already told you that is a philosophy of theirs. But then also it just threw me for a little bit of a loop when Pregnon, who I thought would have been a great pick at 56, wasn't a great pick, like didn't get picked until not just the next pick at 81, but the pick after that at 88. Like, that's where I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's just it's just an interesting takeaway. It could be, again, something specific to the player or something more, philosophical as far as his draft class is concerned. But if you tell me you a run the dang ball team, then I expect you to be a run the dang ball team as far as priority, as far as the draft is concerned. That's all I'm getting at.
And real quick, Diesel points out your elite skill guys can't do anything if you can't even throw the ball or can't run the ball. True, Diesel, but I would remind you, I specifically mentioned that Bengals team because they made it to the Super Bowl and were darn close to winning it. So
what was your knee jerk? So you kind of given me a little bit of it. What your knee jerk reaction of the class? Like, I gave you mine of the first few days of it on the previous podcast, and I know I have a few different opinions on this one just because I'm always a little nuanced that way. But what's yours?
I mean, so I listen. Were I not properly briefed by you and Emery Hunt, reminding me the lack of star power in the draft, I might have felt even more than I did. And granted, as a non 100% card carrying member of the Duval Duval, but merely an honorary member, I didn't love it. When they got the second tight end, Travis, I bordered on ticked. Granted, I had to stay professional because I was in another press box at the time. I couldn't start cursing or whatever as I was watching the Orlando Storm over here for the UFL with the Storm Surge podcast.
Yeah.
But there's enough stuff that I like. There weren't going to be any sexy picks for this draft. So I took that out of my head. Okay. If they ended up with Lee Hunter, I would have lost my mind and called it a great draft. I'm only partially joking.
So that's where a lot of the fan base, I think, would already push back against you. And again, I'm not going to even speak for myself. I'm going to speak for the rest of the fan base.
I'm going places. But I can't, in the very same ilk, and say what you will about me, I'm going to be consistent, especially on the air. I've complained too much about certain needs being met. I've complained too much about needing a tight end, for example, needing a defensive tackle, maybe augmenting the edge, needing corner, which I'll agree with you. That's the biggest deficiency of this draft, in my opinion, is not addressing the secondary quite enough. You're rolling the dice at tackle. Okay, I see the argument. You got a guard. I can't complain all that much, et cetera, et cetera. I asked and you delivered, right? I put out a thing on Twitter where they put the caption of James Gladstone over Jack Nicholson as Nathan R. Jessup and A Few Good Men. What is it? Is it you enjoy the freedom I provide and then question the matter in which I provided? I'm not going to be that guy.
Wow.
But I am confused.
All right. and that's okay. And that's okay to be confused. Like I think, and
see,
you should be.
This is what I'm going to knock out here already. General, you're better than this.
Oh, we already did.
Of touring the AFC South. This I'm going to knock down. The tight ends are the least evil of the draft. I said what I said. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was clear. I thought the tight end was a very clear situation. And we explained it earlier. Rewind the pod. He's listening on YouTube. Rewind the pod.
We've been saying it. Forget the pod. Rewind the previous season, Travis. We've been saying it since Ben Troop came on this show and whined and complained about Evan Ingram and we told him to slow his roll. How right do we still look to the point where Ben Troop has capitulated the argument in question? Then over and above, we said the other night, even Brett Coleman has literally told Jag fans to calm the bleep down. Granted, as a Texans fan, I know that's only so much credibility, but the reason for the tight ends is twofold. A, they needed another dude that can block and catch better. They didn't have him on the roster. All right. I get that they got Quentin Morris. I'm happy with 3.
Yeah.
James wasn't, or maybe Liam Cohen wasn't. Yeah. If you want to ask me how good I felt about the second tight end pick, I hate it. Boerkircher, I at least understand the assignment. And as I hear more about trying to run more 12 and 13 personnel, I don't like it, but I see now I sound like Chris Rock. I don't like it, but I understand.
I understand. But no, I understood the tight end pick was easy. I very clearly understood what they were aiming for, and that's before we even have the Rams and the Seahawks conversations. But there was more of I have packages where teams don't know what I'm going to do, and I can make defenses adjust to me versus me adjusting to defenses, and I think that's a very clear situation. Also, to add the fact that now I have multiple contested catch, high point guys, which Trevor Lawrence works really well with in college and just hasn't had it for much of his time in the NFL, other than maybe Marvin Jones Jr. and Tim Jones for one season. As far as guys who can go up and get it, now he has multiple of those guys on one roster, both at receiver and at tight end. Yeah, that the tight end conversation seemed very easy to me to figure out. They're going to replace these guys. That Trevor Lawrence hasn't historically had many of, and they're doing it with mid to late round guys. That makes some kind of a sense to give this offense another layer that it didn't previously had, down the seam and also high pointing catches. But my general opinion of this draft class is I try my best to be nuanced. I try my best to see. It's in my nature to see both sides in most things. You guys know I worked in law for 15 plus years as a manager of an insurance company. So like making that legal strategy. So I can see things from both sides in most things. You can both believe that this team overdrafted these guys at a lot of spots, while also believing that they still got some nice pieces to kind of turn into a little something. Yeah. Like you could believe that James Gladstone is the right guy for the job while also believing that he's not infallible and not going to shoot 100% from the field. Hell, he might not even shoot 60%, but as long as those 50% are really good players, you probably won't care as much.
Well, let me translate this better because this is my best version of this I've seen, and give shouts to Big Diesel for this comment. Being real, if they bring us home a Lombardi, then I love these.
I love these picks. I mean, that's facts. Like, you can believe that the coaches got the guys that they wanted because they're in the GM's ear. They work in lockstep. But you can also still believe that James Gladstone's drafting is under a microscope at the start of year 2. None of these opinions necessarily be. None of these opinions, they don't conflict with each other. So, but like if these guys hit on these picks, you can even believe that the coaching staff had a major part to play in the development, making these guys better than what they were in college, while also still believing, that the allocation of resources part of the equation might be a little bit out of whack. Like I think Adam said it great on the socials. They're just talking about this is James Gladstone looking at whatever's wrong with Blackwater as far as the valuations are concerned.
That's awesome.
I'm just saying, they clearly hit on where the runs were going to happen in this draft class around different players, in their positions of need. And some would even argue maybe they started the runs of those players by drafting one of them, especially with tight end. But they didn't hit on the names that Jacksonville Jaguar fans wanted, but they did hit on the right positions. So I told y'all I was going to vibe earlier on, early in the offseason. I'm gonna vibe until I see the resulting wins or losses, and I'm gonna be consistent in that. But with that being said, I ain't gonna lie to say I don't have questions, but I had questions heading into this 2025 season. They answered the hell out of a lot of those questions. I still got questions, but I'm gonna vibe and see what happens as far as wins or losses are concerned and what we get from that 2025 draft class also.
And it's okay for us to have questions, Travis. We said this the other night. Now, if you're asking you out there in the Duval Devout, and I've seen it all over places, I don't know what to make of this draft. We're trying to tell you we don't either. But what we do observe is needs were addressed. Things that I myself on this very podcast pounded the table for were accounted for. They just didn't do it with Lee Evans, for example. Okay.
Lee Hunter?
I keep saying Lee friggin'
keep calling him Lee Evans because
Lee
it's the other guy. Yeah.
They may not have done it with Lee Hunter the way I wanted to. You let Carolina do that. Maybe that ticks me off. Heck, I'll confirm it does tick me off just a little bit. Jalen Proctor. Why? Why not him? Oh, we could go on and on.
Proctor?
Huh? Caleb. I said
Caleb
Jalen,
Proctor.
See,
you said Jalen. You're killing me. But I know what you're trying to say.
But again, I'm missing these names like this. You know why? I'm also equally aware that I am in no world where I'm going to claim to be as competent as Jimmy Stone's at this, to be all like, oh, this was a terrible draft, guys. He at least accommodated to the needs I knew were there. And he's doing it with names that I can't even remember the names I wanted, right, for Christ's sake. So who am I to criticize Stones at this point, right?
Well, I think you're not wrong into criticizing or wrong in having questions and asking them to be answered by the play on the field and the development of those players. But I do watch a lot of tape, and I don't watch as much tape as these guys. I'm 100% sure of that because it's not my full-time job. It's not my full-time job where I get paid millions of dollars to do it. Obviously, sorry, sue me. I'm not watching 700 prospects or 1,600 prospects like Emory Hunt. I'm watching maybe a good 100 to 150 max. If you're talking an actual film or something along those lines, that's me annually. But I was watching film last night with one of my buddies, and we both kind of came to a similar conclusion about this draft class that I thought was real interesting because we did it like at the same time, just randomly. It feels a lot like the Jacksonville Jaguars 2023 class, and I'm not saying that it's going to be as dominant and it's going to be I want to be very clear in what I'm saying. People did not like a good portion of that class when the draft happened. They didn't like the Brenton Strange pick. I said it on the socials after it happened. They questioned the Tank Bigsby pick when it happened. People hated the Ventrell Miller pick. Like Antonio Johnson, they were like, "Oh, he's slow. He's about to say all these." We can go down a list. Like people generally liked Parker Washington. I will acknowledge that one, but it was still a boatload of questions across the board with that draft class. That's what it was. And now we can look back and be like, dang, that was a great draft class.
I'm glad you didn't pick a third pick that I didn't like because I only have two hands.
I'm just throwing out the fact that was a draft class full of sleepers.
Yeah.
And it was a lot that a lot of people did not like in this fan base. And a lot of guys who, if they don't hit their projections in this class, they're kind of likely to at least be contributors in a depth role that the team kind of have a specific role where they envision them working it, like the tight end that blocks well, the special teams ace, the run stopping defensive tackle, etc. But the biggest problem with that draft class is just like how we were talking about that 2023 draft class following that 2023 season is, what do you call a sleeper pick that's drafted early and they don't hit? A bad draft pick. Like, that's where it becomes a weird situation. Like, you can call a draft class a sleeper draft, but then if you draft them early, they can't be a sleeper no more. You put the target on their back. That's no different than the Trevon Walker's conversation. When you say a guy is a sleeper, but then you draft him first overall, he's targets on his back. He's going to have to be the guy who you said he was going to be early on, or they're going to have some words for you. Like, that's unfortunately how it worked. Like, but when the pick does hit, no one kind of circles back and be like, that was solid work. Because that's what that 2023 draft class was. It was solid work.
Brock Purdy, and it's so obvious a turnaround. It's got to be that. No one's going to be like, wow, That was really smart to get Parker Washington. That's not going to happen. I think
right. Parker Washington, Antonio Johnson, Anton Harrison, Brent Strange.
The only team that gets that kind of credit to have done that in a lot of places is the Seattle Seahawks, because in the third round, they got a good quarterback out of it with Russell Wilson. But Richard Sherman was a fifth rounder. I think I'm going to say, I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think one of the safeties, I'm going to guess it's Cam Chancellor. It could be Earl. I don't know. But I think he was also a fifth or sixth rounder, pretty low, right?
Yeah.
That the Legion of Boom and Russell Carrington Wilson were both low draft picks. And you saw what they became.
So like this front office, I judge people. I mean, you guys, I've said this on so many podcasts. I think it's very consistent. I don't care what people say to me. I don't. I read words too well, like I'm in a deposition. I care what people do. I read people's actions and I judge their actions way more than their words. Their actions to me said exactly what I said to Emory Hunt heading into this draft, which is that they obviously consider this a bad overall draft class. They did. Their actions said it. Yeah,
a while ago that said something about throw something
positional value. Throw positional value out at this point. It's
right.
Yeah. But no, overall, they thought this was a bad draft class from the top, and they thought it was a bad draft class when you're getting into the depth. They probably had a very short list of key guys that they considered their targets, and their actions to me showed that. They traded away their first round in a Travis Hunter move, which again, that's excusable because if you're thinking about they're in that Rams philosophy, they don't care.
Yeah, well, forget the Rams thing for a minute. You have a guy that could be the best at two different positions, and instead of a pick you're expecting to be lower value in a draft that's relatively air quotes weak. Yeah,
bingo. Yeah, but then they also, in addition to that,
they won that. But whatever, dude. God.
Yeah, but in addition, well, we're gonna get into that in a different podcast. Absolutely. But in addition to that, they traded a fourth and a sixth for Jacoby Myers, and they gave up a sixth for a rental, not the have, but for a rental of Tim Patrick. I mean, again, that's how they feel not just about the top of the draft, but that lets you know how they feel about the depth of the draft also. Because again, 6th round draft picks are sometimes guys who can still make the roster, still contribute on special teams, etc. So like to me, it just felt like they said, hey man, don't miss on these prospects. Don't shoot for the higher risk, high reward prospects who they may or may not be on this roster in 2 years, like your Mason Smiths, like your Javon Fosters or your Jordan Jeffersons, when you thought like, hey, there's a chance they can hit, but they may not hit. At this point, it just felt like they were like, no, you better find me a guys who I think I can develop, who are at bare minimum are going to give me like solid depth on this team and be on this roster, contributing to special teams and everything else. Just don't miss, because this draft class feels like it's trash. So like at minimum, give me guys who will be here contributing while I figure out how to develop them and maybe make them into something better in the NFL. Give me functional depth at best. Like that's what I took from this draft class. They just saying don't miss.
Ladies and gentlemen, Travis is giving what I'm going to refer to as the Elmer's draft, the Elmer's defense. Everybody wants those colorful things like crayons and markers, but at the end of the day, you need glue guys to win a championship. It's an Elmer's draft, ladies and gentlemen.
No, that's actually not terrible. I mean, again, I'm not going to act like I'm not going to act like I'm on top of the world for the draft class, because I told you guys yesterday. Oh, sorry, I told you guys on Friday. Goodness gracious, I'm losing track of my days. That I was
track of people's names. It's okay, champion. Shoot.
Yeah. Like I was not a fan of where they got a lot of these guys. I just wasn't a fan of that because I have an accounting degree. I like money. I like finances. I am good with numbers, and I just think value matters. And retaining value matters. But also, if you hit on the right guys, who gives a damn? Like at the end of the day, and looking at the film of the guys, I'm like, no, I think they picked a lot of the right guys. And maybe that's what they meant by strategically bold, which is not a thing. I'm sorry, I'm not going to repeat that. That's not a strategically bold, but maybe that's what they mean by that at the core, is like bold in a way.
Bold means screw going away from the consensus. I think that's how they define bold, Travis, is going away from the consensus.
Fine, that's what bold is, and that's what bold was last year. The regular term bold, doing things that's out of the norm, but also maybe strategically bold is bold in the way that they can see they have the roles outlined for the individual guys they're bringing in, but in ways that folks simply aren't going to agree with if you're outside looking in. Like
you're looking at the consensus?
Maybe, I guess. I don't know. But
you don't have to like it. I'm just telling you what I think they mean. It's okay.
Yeah, but when folks say that they're like acting like they're the smartest ones in the room, hell, maybe they are. Hopefully they're right. Because I'll be the first to admit it's a scary spot to be in if you're a fan of the organization, but it's also, if you're right, who cares? They're hired to be the guys. Let them be the guys. Let them work. And we're gonna find out where they land at the end of this.
They get paid an awful lot of money for the chance that we might clown the bejesus out of them if they get it wrong.
Yep.
Not wrong.
You got it. That's it. So in the meantime, we're gonna just be here just watching, and we're gonna see what happens. But for the most part, it seemed like they got a lot of good guys. Hopefully they can work with them. They got some solid ingredients now at the end of all of this 2026 season. The only thing I'm not going to be willing to listen to is if they say they don't got the ingredients, because you had the money. I gave you the $50 when you went to Target. I gave you the money when you went to the grocery store. What did you come back with? And we're gonna figure out what you cooked at the end of all of this. But hey, man, you had the money.
We gave you more than an EBT card to get them groceries. Where's my gourmet meal?
Hey man, them EBT cards be having money though. I don't know. Just hey man, you on EBT card? Man. They can cook something with that. All right,
let's get the heck out of here, Travis. Tell the world where you can be found.
Man, you guys already know. BigCatCountry.com. Check out all of our coverage from the draft and throughout this offseason, where you have folks with the boots on the ground, giving you their takes and giving you their takeaways from all these pressers. But most importantly, if you listen to us on the podcast side, click that like button, man. Help us out. It helps us tremendously, and it costs you nothing. Comment on the stream. It helps us again keep growing this thing, and follow us and on the audio side, Apple, Spotify, wherever you pod. Duval Dive on TikTok, the Duval Dive on X, and I'm Travis D. Holmes on all your socials. So you already know I like to talk ball everywhere. Keep it locked in and let them know where you can be found, Mr. Kyle Nash.
Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Big Diesel, thank you for the like click. Appreciate you, brother. Of course, check out my work covering the UCF Knights on UCF Night Zone, and a contributor to Locked On UCF. Shouts to Mike Giddens, James Duncan, Andrew Glukove, my cohorts on that show there. That's a great time. Of course, my work covering the Orlando Storm on the Storm Surge podcast, and actively covering the Magic during this playoff stretch as well. Up 2-1, about ready to host game 4 against the Detroit Pistons. Fantastic stuff all the way around with that. So thank you again, Duval Divers. It didn't feel like 70 plus minutes of action, but that's what we had here today. And if you missed any of it, please go back and look at it on demand. We love that you love it like that, and it helps us bring it back to you so you can keep loving it as well. So for my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, this is Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.